Hello and welcome to a podcast that will be as fast-paced and high-octane as the movie we're reviewing. This is the Geekcentric podcast, and this is our quick-fire review of the Netflix movie, Kate. Joining me, as always, are two Yakuza Sicarios who were born and raised around Lake Ontario. My co-hosts, Justin and Nate.
Oh my gosh. Am I officially a part of the Yakuza now? That makes me so much cooler.
All it takes is watching the movie. You're in. Membership has really gotten easier these days.
Now I need to get a neck tattoo.
Yeah. Or a face tattoo. Get like a single tear from your left eye.
I can't wait.
But I do want to say you guys are looking good. You don't look like you've spent the last 24 hours fighting for your life against ruthless Japanese mobsters.
Yes. Thank goodness.
But on that note, shall we kick and punch and shoot and stab this thing into gear?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. A little intro here. Meticulous and remarkably skilled, Kate is the perfect specimen of a finely tuned assassin at the height of her game. But when she uncharacteristically blows an assignment targeting a member of the Yakuza in Tokyo, she quickly discovers she's been poisoned. A brutally slow execution that gives her less than 24 hours to exact revenge on her killers. Starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Woody Harrelson, Tadanobu Asano, Jun Kinumura, and introducing Miku Martineau, and directed by Cedric Nicholas Trovan, Kate follows a burned assassin's furious pursuit of one last self-appointed job. You know, and I'm just going to start off really quickly here by saying I think what really worked with the film for me were the impressive visual style as well as, well choreographed, if not wholly original, fight sequences. Two things I'm sure we'll discuss a bit here. But what stood out with Kate for you guys?
Well, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it more so than I guess I thought I would. It has its flaws. It's fairly predictable, but to your point, Kevin, the choreography, the fighting, the sort of visual effects, if you will, that were kind of mixed with that, very well done. It felt different and unique enough that it could be on its own, because this is obviously a very typical tropish sort of film that we've seen of John Wick female style femme fatale.
It's almost big. The headshot action film is almost its subgenre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, my expectations weren't terribly high for this movie. So me enjoying it more than I thought I would isn't giving it the highest of praise. But to your point, I think, the movie's got a lot of its own visual style, separate from John Wick. And I know John Wick does like to play in that area of Tokyo, but just sort of to have the movie take place in Tokyo, I think that was one of my favorite aspects about the movie. And the soundtrack it was so much fun to include all that J-pop in there. And that every time that one of those songs came on and she would I'm like, it's about to go down. Like I was, it got me pumped. And I can't say as much about the very thin narrative in the movie, but definitely that more original sort of action and very brutal and very violent action for this movie.
Yeah, it really reaches in terms of the violent nature, and it kind of does feel very traditional in terms of a Japanese style action movie with how it implements the gore elements, but that as well with the cultural sort of relevance. Like I liked how we saw a lot of Japanese culture embedded in different ways, right, through the thematics of the narrative, while also like just having the language really live and breathe in this movie. I think that's really well done. A lot of films like to go to Tokyo but not speak Japanese or have a couple lines in Japanese just to make it feel, but this felt very grounded in that culture. So I think that's a huge plus for it.
I mean, again, I mentioned that it's not the most original in terms of the action just because we've seen a lot of it, but there were still some really cool moments. They did implement some really original spots throughout.
And I hope it's not a spoiler to say, a knife through the chin out of the face. Like, that's the kind of violence we're talking about, to the point where I was like, maybe this is more violent than John Wick? I mean, I know a lot of people die in John Wick, but there's so much more blood in this. And I think it also really speaks to that some of the traditional Japanese, action movies,
yeah, exactly.
especially in some of the scenery that we
saying,
get. We get blood splattered on there and things like that.
Well, I liked,
super cool.
yeah, there was definitely a play with colors in terms of that visual aspect, right? Like, we've seen it in the trailers, but like, the car driving with the neon lights inside, right? Very, very much, or a very interesting scene in a sort of samurai aesthetic that's very white, so that blood really does shine. Like, there was these like sort of thoughtful intentions of doing that, and in terms of the action, what I really liked is that they tried in many cases to do a bit of a oneer with some of them, where it felt very consistent. The alley scene and stuff like that. Like, you'll see a lot of like this choreography that really speaks to this sort of attention to wanting to nail it in more of a vigorous manner rather than relying on cuts. Because I personally am not a fan of action films that rely too much on cuts for fight sequences. We saw it a lot in Mortal Kombat this past year. This felt like it had like that gun style, which is very John Wick, but it also had like some very raid style vibes in terms of hand-to-hand combat. And,
Totally.
Yeah. Like, I would say the combat's better than something like Mortal Kombat, right? So.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one thing that really helps it is, you mentioned, Justin, was that you can see what's going on and you can follow the action so clearly. And I think one of the elements that really helped that was the lighting of the movie. Considering it takes place almost entirely at night, you can still follow it so well. And I was reading up a bit about the movie, and the director credits his production designer, Dominic Watkins, for a lot of that, and the whole cyberpunk feel of the movie in general, because they didn't go with traditional lighting for the movie. They actually built all of the lighting that they use into the scenery, into the props. And so that really helped elevate that, so where you could really see what was going on. Yeah. And then in addition, you mentioned that there's a really cool sort of driving scene, and none of that's actually filmed in Tokyo. It's all CGI.
Right.
And so the way they had to implement that, because it just would be impossible to film something like that with the narrow streets in Tokyo.
Sure.
And so they filmed it in Thailand, did all their shots in Tokyo, and then combined it with CGI, and it made for a really high-octane, really fast-paced scene that was exciting.
It was exciting. It was fun. The CGI was not great, though, I will say.
It wasn't that.
But to the point, like, you can sort of take a movie like this and understand what they have to deal with and what they're dealing with, especially now how hard it is to make movies these days, I'm sure. And especially in that location. And you can give them a bit of a pass for it, because it isn't the longest scene. It's not too distracting, like some of the other things in this movie that we might get to. But no, the CGI racing scene still got me hyped.
Yeah, for sure. I also think, though, that Mary Elizabeth Winstead did a phenomenal job in this movie. She's not new to action, obviously, but she really gave it her all. She kicked some serious ass, and she's come such a long way from being, the innocent daughter of John McClane from that Die Hard film. So it was really good to see her really take that full plunge into it. And I also kind of appreciated how they really tried to make more of a deeper relationship or a deeper connection between Kate and Ani, played by Mookie. But it's just a shame, because it really does end up going nowhere, right? So I don't know if that's a spoiler.
On that note, maybe we'll move to some of the things that didn't work with the movie.
Well, no, and to that point, Justin, you mentioned the word tried there. Absolutely, they tried. But I think, we've already mentioned the storyline thin, very unoriginal, also very drawn out. This movie's too long. Cut 30 minutes from this movie. I think maybe they had an idea
minutes.
for the sequel. Yeah, I mean, I checked the
2 hours
like,
is too long.
It's an hour and 46 minutes. It's an hour and 46 minutes.
I'm telling you right now,
you cut 30 minutes, then it's an hour and 16 minutes. It's like,
not even a full
it's not even a movie. I didn't find it long. I think it's definitely very drawn out. It's a very simple story, right?
Right, but you get to the 40-minute remaining mark, and it almost feels like they had an idea for a sequel and they put it into this movie. That's what I kind of felt from it. But I will say that if we're sticking to the theme of things that really didn't work, and you said they tried to get that chemistry between Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Miku Martineau. Honestly, awesome for Miku to be getting into movies after moving out of voice roles. She's just been in like some light kids cartoons and things like that. Fantastic for her. She was the most distracting part of this movie for me, and unfortunately really brought the movie down for me. Every time she sort of talked or tried to act in a certain way. And to her credit, it also has a lot to do with how her character was written for me as well. I think there were some moments where you see her character react in one way, and then in the next scene, she's completely the opposite. And it really didn't make sense for me to see that character progression the way that it did. So I didn't necessarily enjoy that aspect of adding this sort of concept of this sort of sidekick to the John Wick narrative.
I think that's how it was different.
Yeah, that's what set it apart. And I think that perfectly reflects how a 16-year-old girl who's maybe never been exposed to this side of her family's world would react irrationally and spontaneously when just all of a sudden thrown into the middle of it. Kind of one thing that didn't work for me, because Justin, you mentioned how great Mary Elizabeth Winstead is, and I think a lot of that is just how well she handles the physical aspect of her role. I mean, this is her third consecutive action film,
right.
And she talks about how she worked with the same stunt coordinators and teams through all three movies and just kept learning and progressing as a physical actor through that. And so I think she does a great job of making me feel sympathetic for her character, but I don't give a damn about her journey and her mission in this movie.
I agree.
That's where really narratively it falls flat for me. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And there's so many characters, and they're portrayed by some of the most prominent, most popular Japanese actors in the world today, and I don't care really about them and what they're doing. I mean, it really is a one-character show. But I did think that there was one particular scene in the movie where our main character, Kate, is confronting the person she's set out to assassinate. And I thought that whole scene with everything else going on sort of around it was really well done. Maybe the best non-action scene of the movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of the other parts where it wasn't that great action kind of fell flat.
Yeah, and it felt very convoluted with all the twists and turns and things like that. It's just, again, I feel like the trailer really does just set up for what to anticipate from this movie, and that is a action-packed, not so great narrative movie with some good visual effects, and like that's what I was expecting, and that's what I got. So I was actually like pleasantly surprised.
I think needless to say, we liked elements and didn't like elements, and I think we're generally on the same page with what worked and what didn't, exception of a few minor things. But I think overall we enjoyed the movie for the most part. But let's find out. In this movie, Kate has 24 hours to seek her revenge. With this podcast, we have far less time. So before our poison sets in, let's give our scores for the movie. Today, I'm asking, what's your score out of 5 Boom Boom lemon drinks?
Yeah, Boom Boom Lemon.
I mean, listen, this movie is a competent John Wick-like movie, following that format almost to a T. The action and combat was brutal, and it felt less acrobatic. And I think that's what gave this movie its style, which was cool, and did differentiate it in that sense. Extremely violent. It moves very quickly from fight to fight to fight, which is nice for action fans and choreography fans. But I think the story and the plot points are so thin and so drawn out that it didn't vibe with me enough for me to say like to really talk about anything exciting about this movie other than the action. And that's not necessarily what I want to watch a movie for fully. So, I think there was 40 minutes remaining in this movie. And again, as I said, it felt like they could have had plans for a sequel that maybe would have continued the storyline that they try to sort of continue with a big twist that doesn't really have that much of a payoff. The acting all around was fine. I think, again, Mary Elizabeth Winstead was the best part of this movie. Obviously, she's the main character, but I did think, again, Miku's acting was distractingly subpar for me, and it was very Disney Channel original movie, and I couldn't get over that, constantly sort of bringing me out of this high-octane action, very adult movie. So I don't think it was the right choice to bring in a sidekick like that, personally, unless you're going to make her incredibly likable and incredibly endearing, which I didn't find. And so I think overall this movie didn't have too much hype for me. It's, as we said, it's like the 7th John Wick style movie that we've seen in the past year, and we've seen them be done better outside of John Wick. So it exceeded my expectations, but they were pretty low to begin with. I'm going to give this movie 3 Boom Boom Lemon Drinks out of 5. So not bad, not great. Just another sort of action movie with a great soundtrack, awesome violence that you can watch with some popcorn with some friends. So, yeah.
Nice. For myself, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie for what it is. The action is stunning. Mary Elizabeth does a fantastic job, and I enjoyed Ani, played by Miku. She was fantastic. The narrative is thin. It is very thin. I feel like, though, it does draw on a traditional Japanese tragic hero story, which grounds this story in its sort of cultural reference of being Japanese. And the film does a really great job of celebrating the culture with the use of the language and subtitles and just a focus on some of Japanese storytelling thematics. I agree that this is very John Wick style. I feel like this is another take on that sort of revenge story, but of course this isn't the first time we've seen this revisited. This past year I did get a chance to check out another Netflix film, which is called Gunpowder Milkshake, which again is a take on the John Wick style, but has like this Tarantino, Wes Anderson Western vibe to it, which is really good, and a lot of the same themes. It used glam and visual effects to really, up its ante and separate itself. This film, however, it felt very raw. It felt gritty. The attention to the fight choreography, the intensity of the gore, it does definitely sit in its own sort of action vibe while still drawing on very relevant genre tropes. I don't know. I would definitely recommend this movie for anyone who wants to watch it. Again, if you want it for the action and the performances, you'll enjoy it. It's definitely not a riveting story, but again, it is a movie and you'll enjoy it. I think it's entertaining enough. If you're into action movies, this is an action movie. This is what you would expect. So for that reason, I'm going to give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 Boom Boom Lemons.
I think I'll probably fall somewhere in between you two. I really enjoyed certain elements of this film, but I feel like it was moments here and there rather than stretches of the movie or elements. I mean, there's one great moment where they set up for this huge climactic sword fight, and then it's almost a riff on a classic Indiana Jones moment that I got a good chuckle out of.
Yeah.
And so, again, there were little elements that I enjoyed, and again, I think it's a great lead performance. And I enjoyed the element of the sidekick thrown into this genre to sort of separate it, because it gives our main character something other than just the typical revenge story to sort of fight for.
Absolutely.
And so that helped me set it apart a little bit from some of the other variations in the headshot genre, as I've coined it now. But yeah, again, just narratively, it falls flat. It is a bit too long, and there's just not enough to sink your teeth into. I mean, I would really only recommend this to somebody who just loves to get their, hands on any action film out there. But I think it's been done better before, and I'm sure it will be done better in the future. That said, I'm going to give this a 3.1 Boom Boom Lemon Drinks out of 5. Well, there you have it. Our quickfire review for Kate. The film is out now on Netflix. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you would be so kind, leave us a glowing review. Will you be checking out Kate? And if you have, did it hit the mark? Shoot us an email at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if you only have hours to live and that'll take too long, hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT and on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. As always, we have just a ton of podcasts to check out. We have our instant trailer reaction for Matrix Resurrections. And of course, there's our weekly Watch Club series for Marvel's What If. Justin, Nate, and everyone listening, until next time, unless you drink the Margot, keep it geeky.